Hello everyone, Assalamu alaikum. I'm Amber Noor Mustafa. I am a Fulbright doctoral candidate at Florida State University in the International and Multicultural Education Program. Today I'm going to present my work, The Tale of Two Policies, Comparing Approaches to Education Policy Making of International Development Organizations and National Actors for the Same Outcomes. What do you see in this picture? Yes, you see many roads coming to the same destination. Well, this is what I'm going to talk about today, how the same outcomes can actually be affected by the journey or the process that you take towards that destination. So the United Nations Girls Education Initiative claims that girls' education is a fundamental human right underpinning all other rights and an essential element of sustainable human development. Whereas there is broad consensus on this, different policies converge differently in terms of the strategies to meet that goal. In this paper, I focus on how the Pakistani state and international development agencies working in Pakistan approach and implement policies to support enrollment of girl students. I argue that effectiveness and relevance of different policies needs to be understood in terms of processes of collaboration between stakeholders to implement these policies and not merely in relation to the outcomes. So the traditional view of efficacious education policy making is measured in terms of outcomes. So skills and knowledge are strategically acquired for high economic return on investment. It is assumed that greater investment in human beings will result in greater productivity, and education is considered the tool for this. And this view is, however, problematic as it is devoid of consideration of the processes which are involved in reaching these or fulfilling these outcomes. So I've studied the work of different authors on how this can be a contested field, but there are three more significant that I would like to quote here. Firstly, this can be viewed through the research by Jisamia et al., studying the impact of educational initiatives for achieving gender parity in schools in Bangladesh and Malawi, where education was sorted as a means to achieving gender equality by increasing enrollment. But the underlying purpose of gender equality via these perceivable changes in society was not achieved. In fact, education made life more difficult for girls who got education because they became societal misfits and were not accepted by their own communities in most cases. Then we have the work of Bajaj and Patmaraja, who reported minimum consideration for the agency of actors involved in this process. Girls' empowerment, however, found a route through boys' support in this case, but not through the agendas of the policymakers who were planning the whole project. Finally, we look at Khurshid, who shows that the definitions and conceptualization of empowerment can be different for three different stakeholders in the same school in Pakistan, even though the outcome was empowerment of females, and all three were working in the same context geographically and culturally, and even in terms of the curriculum of the school. On the other hand, the new approach to policy development lays emphasis on a systemic review of processes involved in reaching an outcome, the premise being that such analysis open avenues for different discourses and subsequent alteration in mindsets. This paper is therefore grounded in this new approach, arguing that due significance must be given to nuances of processes of policy implementation and presentation with different actors. For this research paper, data has been collected by a deep analysis of two policies on the implementation of sustainable development goals to increase girls' enrollment in Pakistani schools. The first policy is situated in the approach of international actors, is the Department for International Development's Education Policy 2018. DFID has recently been merged with the Foreign and Commonwealth Office to create the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. So, in line with this vision, DFID initiated several projects in Pakistan, and 9 out of the 45 active projects were for education. The second one is Pakistan's implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development in 2019. In 2016, a National Assembly resolution adopted the Sustainable Development Goals to guide its national development agenda, asserting its commitment to 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. So SDG 4, which is quality education, and SDG 5, which is about gender equality, are part of the priority list. And we will be discussing these two over here. So UK through DFID and Pakistan have a long donor recipient history. So that is why I chose to work with this organization for this assignment. UK aid was one of the first after independence, and UK has boasted of its strong bilateral relationship with Pakistan and vice versa. UK was our colonizer, and so we have a very unique relationship. So I really wanted to explore if this mentality has also changed. This is the look at the national priority agenda with with all the SDGs that were part of the priority list. So now the research questions are: how does the approach and presentation of policies to increase girls' enrollment in schools differ for the government of Pakistan and the Department for International Development, which is different? How do these policies influence the perceived outcomes of implementation of these policies? So moving on, we first look at the similarities between the two policies. First of all, both the policies, they aim for sustainable development and not just a one-off event of change. Secondly, both the policies are looking to mitigate barriers to access to education for these girls. Then next, the target of both the policies is to improve the situation of gender discrimination, so that girls have an equal position next to boys. Human rights approach is the underlying approach of both the policies. Then economic uplift of individuals as well as the country is the aim and ultimate goal of both the policies. Both are looking for a data-driven approach and not just a gut feeling or what they think is right. Both policies believe in improved and intensive monitoring and evaluation. Collaboration with international development organizations lies at the heart of the policy process and plan. And the focus is in both the policies, you see a focus on quality of education and professional development opportunities. Now, if you look at the differences, Policy 1 looks at school-based transformative measures. So these are based in the school and lack contextualization. Then individuals are considered as agents of change in this situation. So the policy, for example, says at the heart of everything we do are individuals or the people. Then there is promoting gender equality by improving school enrollments. And this is a very, very critical point, because when we will go to policy 2, we will see how it is different for both the policies. Then education has the power to change lives is what Penny Mordaunt, Secretary of State for International Development's message is in this policy. And quality education is mentioned, but we don't really know what it means because it is not explained in this policy. Then there is a great emphasis on UK expertise and best advice, to the extent that even 4,000 to 5,000 pounds are being paid every day for about 250 days in the whole year for the work that these different UK organizations do in Pakistan. And this ties in with the next point that because the policy also mentions the aid strategy of providing investment opportunities for education and strengthening UK influence, including giving of loans to Pakistan. Now, if you look at the second policy, which is the Pakistan government's policy, the approach says that we are changing abstract aspirations into real objectives to improve the living standard for the whole society. So it's not just based on certain groups or just within the school. Then you see that there is a mapping of the SDGs with legislation. So not just happening within inside the school, but in the community, and linked to the legal implications of the SDGs. And so in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which is one of the provinces, you see free compulsory primary and secondary education act. Then for SDG 5, which is gender equality, you see the National Commission on the Rights of the Child Act, which was in 2017, and then the Protection of Women Against Violence Act. Then in this situation, you also see that there is this need to work by taking the context into consideration. So economic, social, and environment, all three must work together. There is a promotion of gender equality to improve school enrollments, and this is, you see how it is different. Here you are talking about DFID's policy. You are looking at gender equality by improving school enrollments, but in the second policy you are looking at promoting gender equality, which will result in higher school enrollments. Communication platforms for as well as for linguistic and geographical context, they are taken into account in this policy. There is a lot of work on advocacy and awareness of the citizens. And finally, contextual adaptability lies at the heart of this policy, and not just looking at people in as individuals or certain groups or just within the school. So an analysis shows us that the no emphasis is, if you look at the analysis of policy 1 and policy 2, you see that in policy 1, there is no emphasis on steps to ensure social cohesion, negative cultural frameworks and mindsets. And this economic phenomenon divorces the discourses required around societal, political, and cultural problems, or those which can question the power hierarchies, which are an integral part of international development and should be an integral part of policy borrowing. So this approach may be considered another form of imperialism, where loans will make an already heavily indebted country further dependent on them. And in the case of investments, money is rerouted to the UK. And additionally, Khan and Ahmad 2007 argue that foreign aid engenders a culture of compliance and supremacy of the donor in economic and political matters. Then you see that causal claims about how education can be a tool of social mobility is mentioned a lot of time in the policy, but there is no data to prove its translation in real life or any explicitly practical steps about how to ensure such a result of education. The word quality itself is mentioned 15 times in the policy, but not explained even once. These divergent approaches for the same outcomes of external and internal policymakers can, however, create tensions, as financial support from the international organizations is mostly accompanied by conditionalities, constraining recipient countries from exercising the autonomy of designing and implementing policies. As per omnipresent precedent, emphasis of the donor is mostly on targets, deadlines, and outcomes, while the recipient aspires for a long term horizontal partnership with a transfer of knowledge and capacity building for sustainable development. Thus, this donor recipient relationship is non linear and sometimes it can yield negative results as well. So, what are the recommendations or what can we do in such a situation? After extensive exploration of literature, I found the Paris Declaration of 2005 a very practical, action oriented roadmap to improving the quality of aid and its impact on development. Because it gives a series of very specific implementation measures and establishes a monitoring system to assess progress and to ensure that donors and recipients hold each other accountable for their commitments. And also, it recognizes and acknowledges that policy making is a nuanced and multi-layered processes which must go through a mutual process of development where all stakeholders are involved and part of the process. So we know that despite all these differences, this process of policy making and these aid relationships are not going to go away very soon. So what is very important is to take into consideration the active involvement of all policy actors and all stakeholders so that there is mutual consent and and a very altruistic effort to bring about sustainable change. In a meeting of the Association for the Development of Education in Africa in 2017, Senegal's President Abdou Daouf emphasized that shared ownership of successes and failures with participatory governance through bilateral exchanges is integral to the successful utilization of international aid for education. Thank you so much for watching. Let's connect and talk about these topics and these situations more and continue these conversations. So please reach out, join my Facebook page, Naksh EduVision Solutions, and it will be a pleasure to stay in touch with you. Thank you so much.